Hello everyone, and welcome to the basic tutorial and how to play video for Calas. In the game, you will be receiving a board as well as all of the components that you see here. In the game, you are searching the island of Calas. The place includes 5 types of terrain: mountains, oceans, deserts, and forests, as well as a central city in the middle of the map. The goal is to explore and become the most honorable person on the island. In Calas, there are 4 types of buildings, which include resource buildings, such as villages and mines, 1 public building, called a guild hall, and cities that look like this. Buildings have a number of resources. You can gain honor points and soldiers, development tokens, character cards, and strategy cards. Each player has 2 markers that represent themselves. One is for moving on the map. In this case, it would indicate this figurine here. The other is for honor, which is indicated over here on the board, and it will move along the track as players gain honor throughout the game. The game is designed for 2 or 4 players. As you can see, this game is set up for a 4-player variant. In order to set up the board, you will look at the rulebook and it will show you exactly how to set up the board. Each player will also receive an assortment of buildings. The first thing they're going to be getting is called a base, which is a city that consists of 3 blocks. The next is a single city, which looks like this. This is the nomadic tent. Secondly, you'll be receiving 2 guild halls. Guild halls look like this. They're positioned over here on your side of the board, and 2 for each on every single side of the board for each player. You're also going to be receiving 3 villages, 1, 2, and 3, as well as 2 mines, these 2 over here. You'll also be receiving a couple other things. Let me go ahead and show you. These are the sets of items and tokens in which you'll be receiving in Calas. As you can see, you're going to be getting a battle board as well as a leader. Each leader is going to come equipped with 2 of their own heroes that are attached to him to begin the game with. You're also going to receive 2 cards that are used as strategy cards, a certain amount of victory points to begin the game with along with gold coins, as well as 2 mine tokens. These here are representative of your color, and it's also going to represent your leader's color. You're going to be using these to gain new territories, and when you lose territories, to go back and forth. They represent 2 different colors, a solid and a see-through, so that way you're able to tell them apart, determine what level of the building it's going to be. Also, you're going to receive die tokens. These are tokens you'll be using throughout the game in which you'll be able to turn over, indicating that you have switched a die. After you've done so throughout the round, after all of them have been used, you can no longer use them again until the next round. You'll also be receiving 25,000 units worth of soldiers. These guys will be gained throughout the rounds, and you'll be using them to fortify and attack locations. Okay, so now the board has been completed, and as you can see, every player has all their tiles next to the buildings they own, as well as their moving token on each of their cities, as well as they have all received their main leader and 2 starting heroes. They've also got all of their tokens and chits in a pile ready to go. The last thing you need to do is set the action round counter to 1 and take the remaining heroes that are not being used into a deck of cards, shuffle that deck of cards, and then deal out 4 of them so that they can be purchased at a later time. After you've done so, then you will have everybody roll a die, and the highest roll will be the first player. After that, action round will begin, and the first player will roll their dice. They will roll their dice and use these die to move around the board. You have to move the indicated number amount. However, you can stop in certain areas, such as cities, to do certain actions. Otherwise, you're just going to end up going to the space that you have to land on, specifically here, and an action will occur. Every player will do that in succession. Afterwards, the next action round will begin, and turns will continue like that. After the 4th action round concludes, there will be an income phase in which players are going to gain soldiers and miners and coins, as well as victory points, and the game will continue. The player that gets to 50 points first is going to be the winner of the game. Alright, let's talk about a couple of actions that can happen when landing in specific spaces. So during that first action round, you're going to be rolling your dice. Now let's say you want to go to a specific space on the board. The red player here is starting to begin the turn. He specifically would like to go to the guild hall. However, he just rolled a 5. That would mean he would move past the guild hall and onto a village. However, had he rolled a 3, he would land on the guild hall. Well, that's not a problem with these die chits here. You are able to turn them over and use them once during the 4 action rounds, and then you can change any number of any die number to the number you have assisted to. So from that to that, 3 to 1, and then you can now move those spaces that correspond to the die. So whenever you're rolling dice in any way in this game, you are able to change them based on the die tiles you have available. The guild hall will allow you to do one of 3 different actions during this action phase. The first thing this player could do is draw a strategy card. These are strategy cards. Strategy cards will let you choose to do certain things throughout the game. Some of them are going to allow you to steal certain amounts of money from other players, adding pluses to your combat, as well as deactivating an opponent's strategy card. There are a bunch of different strategy cards throughout the game that you can earn. Another option you could choose to do would be to purchase a character card. The character cards over here are up for purchase at any point in time, and you could simply choose to purchase them as an action as opposed to any other action on the guild hall. The last thing you could do is purchase a development token. The first one is 2,000, the second is 4, and the third is 6,000. These are development tokens. You can use development tokens to level up your cities. When you choose to buy a development token, you can simply take one of your tokens and place it on an existing token. Whenever you're developing a location, you have to always try to remember to develop them equally in all aspects. But if there is an unequal number, or they're all the same, you can then choose. So I can now upgrade this city from 1 to 2 simply by spending money by purchasing a development. That would be one of the 3 actions on your action phase, and those are the 3 you can do specifically on a guild hall. Additionally, had he rolled a 4 instead of rolling a 5 or a 3, he would be on a village. Villages will allow you to add more soldiers or take them away and put them into your pool. Soldiers are also similar to money. They are used for defense of your locations, as well as the ability to attack other players depending on which type of attack mode you'll be doing. In this case, the village is going to be my village because it has my little production symbol on it. It's the red color, as well as it already has units next to it, which means they are my units. If I wanted to, I could add a certain amount of units equal to, depending on the amount of units capable, onto the specific spaces. All the spaces tell you how many units you can have on them. If a village has no development token on it, you are able to simply take one of your development tokens and earn that village simply by being on the space. When battling mines, so if I went over here, you're going to be able to gain these little mining pieces here that will allow you to upgrade your cities into higher structures. Now, you'll have to battle just like you would in a village, and if you were able to defeat somebody else's mine, removing their soldiers, you would simply switch the space here with your own, and then you'd have to fill it up. It would either be 0 or 2,000. So you would put 2,000 units on there. Then you're going to gain that mining token from that player and give yourself an additional upgrade. When using your character to land on a village that is not their own, such as when this character over here lands on a green village, there is going to be a battle or ending their turn. If they choose to battle, they can choose War of Aggression. There are 3 types of battles. There is Championship Warfare, Honor Fighting, and War of Aggression. The 3 types of battles can always be ensued on the city space. However, on villages, only War of Aggression may take place. War of Aggression is simple. The attacking player will choose one of their heroes and send it out to battle, as well as all of their units. They are then going to each roll their die and attempt to beat each other in combat. For every loss, 1,000 units will be removed from the loser, and until either A, the attacking player loses all of their units, or B, the defending player loses all of their units on the specific space. If the defending player loses all of their specific units, then the player who attacked will be able to take off their the defending player's space here and remove it and add one of their own. All of the gains and losses involving victory points and currency will be tallied at that specific time when a player loses a location and when a player gains a location. There are 2 other types of battles, which I'll explain right now. If the player were to be in a location where another player would be, such as Green's location, city over here, then that player will be able to do one of the other 3, such as maybe an honor fight. Honor fights are simple. You're able to choose any of your heroes that are unused and send them into battle. The defender will also choose a hero as well. Each player will also then put in 2,500 points worth of army units from their Tum Sum Sodal over here, and they will then do battle in 5 rounds. For each round, the attacking player wins, they're going to gain honor. And for each round a player loses, they're going to lose 500 soldiers. After the best 3 out of 5 units best 3 out of 5 battles have been done, then the honor fight is going to be over, and the victor is going to tally all of their honor points, and the battle will end. The last form of battle is Championship Warfare, in which players are going to select the unit that they have available and send them out. The same would happen again for the opponent, in which case they would also be rolling die, and the best 3 out of 5 would indicate that the loser is going to lose 1,000 units. The winner would also gain 1,000 units from the player who lost. Another option would be to pay a toll. If a player were to enter another player's city and they were able to pay a toll instead of maybe wanting to fight, then that player would simply pay whatever number the production value of that city is times 500 to that city's controller. In this instance, it would be 1 times 500, and you would simply have to pay 500 soldiers to the spot in which these being defended by the defender. Don't forget though, while you're battling, you could always choose to use your die tiles to influence your die rolls. So for instance, if I rolled a 6 and a 3, and my opponent rolled a 6 and a 2, I would be able to change the 3 into a 6 by removing that die tile and no longer being able to use it for the next 4 rounds, in which case I would be the winner. However, my opponent would also be able to do the same thing, provided they had that tile to be used. Sometimes in battle, you're also going to be able to use these cards. These cards will let you do certain things. This one, for instance, says you can add 2,000 soldiers from your pool to one of your cities. And this one over here says send 2,000 soldiers from an opponent's team and place them into your team. This can be beneficial before fighting a territory in which you think you might not win because the amount of soldiers is too high, or because you want to reduce the total of soldiers in which to be able to defeat them via one of the other 2 fighting methods that is not going to be the war of aggression. To note too, also, while you're moving around the board, if you end up going to the middle space of the board, you can choose to stop. If you do so, there are certain city actions that can take place, and in fact, you can choose to gain the city location. This is a very valuable source of income throughout the game. When you get to a crossroads like this one, you'll be able to choose which way you move throughout the game, and it is the main area in which you're going to be stopping. In any other case, you would simply move forward towards the location you were generally going in. For instance, if I was going to be going this way here, I would have to go to this location here, in which case this is a teleportation space, which allows me to move to an adjacent teleportation space like this one here. There's an extra identifying one over here, which can be used for later use or other different types of gameplay. Finally, regarding movement, if you started in the city space here, not only do you have the option to move to these certain locations as well, going left, right, and forward, but you could also choose to move to a carriage space, and that would be any carriage space on the board, which would then allow you to go either way on your next turn. Carriage spaces provide no other aspect in the game other than to simply move across the board. They do not have the ability to be earned, and they do not give you any income throughout the game. So that is the basic idea of how you move around the board. Let's go back to the first turn where this character actually moved to here and only was able to use their first die space. The next player, being blue, would also use their die to move and then simply move around the board as well. They would have the guild hall and they would get to do one of the 3 actions there. And then the yellow player would also be able to do their thing, and that would be an 8, and they could move in any direction as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Also note certain spaces are going to require more movement than others, and it'll be based on the number of squares represented on those spaces. The last turn will be simply green here, moving 8 as well, starting here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They would do their action as well. After all actions have been taken place throughout the entire round, the first action phase is over and the marker would move to 2. In which case it would go to 3 and simply 4, and finally an income phase. Okay, so now we've come to the income phase, and the first thing you're going to do is have every player check how many points you have gained, honor points that is, and then you're going to take your pieces on the track, which will start at 0, and move them across the track based on how many you have. The red player here has 8, and every other player in this example has 7. However, that could change in a basic game depending on how many of these locations you have control of, as well as the level of each location. The next thing you're going to do is tally up your points and gain soldiers depending on how many points you have. This is 8, so it's going to be 8,000 soldiers. These are each going to be worth different denominations, the smallest being 500, the next being 1,000, these carts being 2,000, and finally these trebuchets being 5,000. As soon as you add up to exactly 8,000, then make sure everyone does the same. After you've gained your soldiers, then you're going to move on to your mines. Mines will indicate additional upgrades throughout the game, and you can upgrade your main city or smaller cities. You'll be taking your upgraded tiles here and placing them on them to make sure that they are equal in some way, so that they all have at least the same amount, as much as you possibly can. After you've gone ahead and done that, make sure to refresh your die, as well as refreshing your character cards, and including 2 additional upgrades for the main city location in the middle of the board. This is a good way to gain additional currency. After that, you also note that you're going to also, whenever you increase these guys, to gain additional points for the next round. Finally, you're going to take all of the units you have available to you that have not been purchased throughout the round and discard them, and then choose 4 new units from the deck, flip them over, and make a new pool of units that you will be able to buy for the next action phase. So that is the basic idea of how to play Calas. Now, you have to hit 60 points on that income phase, and if you do, you win. Also, if you can hit it beforehand, you don't even need to go there, and that single player is going to win the game just by getting there alone. Also to note, whenever you gain a location from another player, you're going to take away their income as well as their honor points in front of them and put them on yours. So doing that throughout the game is going to give you additional points. There is a bunch of units in the game, and I didn't go over it a lot in battle because they're very unique. Now, first of all, you're going to be having guys like this guy here, and it's your leader. Your leader is never going to be turned over and can always be used. He has 3 different numbers here which represent the different types of battles in the game: war of aggression, honor fighting, and so on. They each are going to tell you how many die you are able to use and which die you can use. There's a number of different die in the game though. This says 2 to 12, which means you're going to be using 2 6-sided die. If any of your leaders say +1 or +2, you're going to increase that number by 1. So a +1 would be a 3 to 13. You'd be then using a blue die as well as a red die. And if it gives a +2, you could then do a 4 to 14, which would be this green die here. However, you can choose any incrementation of die you would like. But whenever you use this little switcher die here, you can only increase it to the highest number that you have. So if you choose to go with this black die here, and you happen to roll something like a 4, you can only increase it to a 6. Also, each character also has their own unique abilities. For instance, this guy here, Adam, the Song of the Wind, has Holy Wind. For the first round of Championship Warfare, he's guaranteed to win. Not only that though, but on honor fights and championship warfare, he gains a +1. You've got other guys here like Percival that says he's a construction master, and the cost of purchasing developed tokens in a guild hall is reduced by 1,500, 3,000, and 4,000, and he has war of aggression +1. Your leader also usually has a passive ability. For instance, Nerevine has whenever Nerevine passes a village of his or other factions, he finds his followers and gains 500 soldiers, and you put them in your team. Pretty cool, right? There's also a ton of additional units when purchasing them throughout the game that you can gain. Not to note too, but whenever all the action rounds are over after the 4th, you're simply going to rinse and repeat, and whatever you have in front of you for honor points and currency is the amount you're going to be moving around the board as well as gaining as soldiers. There's also going to be action cards, and I talked about it a little bit in the tutorial, but let's go over a couple more. You have Featherfoot here, which says at the start of your turn, instead of rolling dice, move to any location on the map and enter that building. It costs a certain amount though. This one over here says Contemplation. Draw and gain 2 strategy cards from the deck. A very useful one indeed. Reorganization. At the start of you or your opponent's turn, instead of rolling dice, that person re-enters the current building for this turn. Basically stopping them, but not ending their turn. And then you also have something like Retreat. During the battle, but before victory is determined, end the battle immediately, and the battle has no winner, and the attacker does not have to pay the toll. Very useful. So there's a lot of these to use as well. But that's the basic idea of how to play the game Calas, and I hope I explained it well. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below, and we'll go ahead and answer them for you. Thanks for watching an Unfiltered Gamer, How to Play video.